Welcome to the ATA podcast, where we talk to former elite athletes sharing their insights and wisdom derived from successfully transitioning into life beyond the game. A very warm welcome to the Athlete Transition Accelerator podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Tommy Taylor, a former professional rugby union player, a man who's played from 2011 to 2025. It's a recent retirement, probably the most recent transition out of sport we've had. So 14 years in the top flight, capped by his country, and we're delighted to have you joining us today, Tommy, sharing your story of transition.
Thank you very much. Yeah, lovely to be here. Very fitting, as you said, very fitting subject for me right now. So I'm
Absolutely.
excited.
Well, I know we talk with all of our guests about transition, and you are in the absolute eye of the storm, if you will. I mean, it's only May 2025 that you announced your retirement. So it's going to be really interesting to see where you are and how that's evolving. But we always like to just set the scene before we dive into the transition element, Tommy. Just a lot of seasons at the top flight. I know you've played in a couple of Premiership finals with Wasps. What would you pull out as one or two of your proudest memories now that you finally hung the boots up? If you had to pull a couple of moments out of that
Mm.
very long career at the top flight, what comes to mind?
Um, yeah, proudest moments. Obviously, I dwelled on this a little bit, retiring and getting all that together. So I think the one that really sticks out is when I got my first contract. I was 18, I think 18, 19, about 18. I was involved in the academy a little bit
Yep.
through school, but um, I never did any representative stuff at school. And playing professional rugby was seemed a little out of my reach. Had a bit of an opportunity to to train with Sale, sorry, when I left school for the year. So uncontracted, but give it a go. And I was
Hmm.
like, deferred uni, did that, and managed at the end of the year to get a 3-year contract. I remember it so clearly. On my way home from Carrington on a Monday night and getting a call from, I think it's Phil Leck at the time. Actually, no, sorry, Ray Unsworth it was.
Right.
Um, so no, going off me a contract, and it was like unbelievable. It was amazing. That for me, that was the best feeling I've had, and that was right at the start of my career.
Fabulous.
Not that it went downhill from there,
No,
but
no, no. Just a special moment. I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
just a special moment. I'd say playing wise, obviously Cap was a fantastic day. The week leading up to it was amazing. Um, the week after that, I went on tour to South Africa with the Saxons, so we had a 2.5 week tour out there. I was moving clubs at that time. It was the time I moved from Sale to Wasps.
Right.
And there's a few Sale boys on that trip and Wasps lads as well. So kind of softened that transition between clubs. But the experience on that trip was amazing. We had Ali Heffer was a head coach. Um, we won both games, which helps.
Yeah.
In an unbelievable country, fall in love with South Africa. Played with a lot of South African lads at Sale, obviously, and
Yes.
they're all brilliant, brilliant blokes and brilliant men. So I'd say that was a highlight. I'd say that 2.5 week trip was yeah up there.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Fabulous.
Premiership finals you mentioned them. I lost them all, so
Yeah,
unfortunately,
well, still you got there. You got there, and this is
yeah,
this is what I love when you play at that top flight for so long. I know we could
yeah,
have a whole episode just talking to you about all the wonderful memories, but you pull
mm,
two out there, and it's lovely to ask this question genuinely, Tommy, because you see what it means, and taking us right back to that moment. There'll be a lot of people listening that can totally relate to that. Wow, I've got a chance to combine my passion with my profession, to be a professional sportsman. I love it. Now, it feels almost a bit unkind to then go from the highs and pivot now into the lows. But obviously, we said at the start of the episode that you've only recently hung up your boots. And I know it wasn't through design necessarily. It wasn't that you were one of these chaps that got to a stage where, right, I'm ready to retire and move
yeah.
on. Unfortunately, the body sort of forced you down this path, didn't it? So give us a bit of an overview of what actually made you retire.
Yeah, so I think it's probably a year ago to the day, I think it happened.
Right.
So I was just training normal. It was I think the week before the season started last season, training normally at the AJ Bell before a game, and I had a bit of a tight back. I had a few issues with my back in the past, but a bit of a tight back, lost a bit of range, all kind of telltale signs for me that I'd slipped a disc or something had happened. But I wasn't necessarily that concerned. And then over the next few days, um, I obviously didn't train, but I was taking it pretty easy, and just the pain, the sciatica down my leg, the nerve pain kind of increased. Got to a point where I woke up on the Saturday morning I'd say in the most pain I've ever been in. It was absolute agony. And in that morning, part of my left leg just started to shut down. So obviously the bulge in my back was pressing on the nerve, and that switched off that nerve, damaged the nerve so much that it switched off a lot of the signals down to my left leg. So
Right,
that was a bit scary at the time. Had an operation to sort out the disc, which went well, released pressure on the nerve, but the nerve didn't repair.
right.
It's still not repaired, unfortunately. It's something I'm working on and trying to find routes to make it better, but it'll never get to a point where I can play professional rugby again. It's more of a how do I improve my mobility for the rest of my life at this point.
Yes.
Got walking with a bit of limp at the moment, can't run, can't do a calf raise. So yeah, for me at the moment, it's ending my career, which is sad in a way, but I think at the forefront of my mind is more mobility moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a horrible story to listen to, but this is one of the aspects of transition that we come across on a daily basis, unfortunately, Tommy, that, we'd love to be able to say that everybody goes out on their own terms, but
Mm.
particularly in sports as brutal and as competitive as rugby, it's unlikely that you're going to get that chance. So, to now be in that position and have your hand forced, it's difficult physically, but I imagine it's also difficult mentally. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you are literally just a few short months into the process. So, without asking a ridiculous question, how are you finding the transition? I suppose is the first question.
Yeah.
And what sort of preparation, what sort of work had you done in advance of this, or was it all been a bit of a whirlwind? Was there things you were doing? Were you starting to have half an eye on what you might do after rugby,
Yeah.
or was it all that morning, backache, wake up, surgery, and everything's just sort of gone at 100 miles an hour since?
No, I think it's definitely been a process. It has. It's not. It wasn't a sudden stop.
Right.
As I said, I got injured last October, and I was rehabbing all last season trying to get back. So I knew towards the end of that season this was finishing me off. So
Yeah.
beauty about anything, isn't it? It's like obviously there's some bad things, but there's always good things out of every situation. So that was a good thing I saw. Like it's ended my career, but it's also given me a really long run up to leaving the game and what I'm starting next.
Right.
I've I've always been aware of that. I think I've always had in the back of my mind. I think maybe because I kind of my route to pressure rugby maybe a little bit different compared to an academy England 16s, 18s where you know you're going to play rugby.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
had it in the back of my mind that it could end at any point. Had two pretty bad knee injuries playing for England, so again got to the top and then I was out of the game for 9 months. So I think all that combined has given me a bit of a mindset of right, this could end at any point. I've got a family, got a mortgage,
Yeah.
got people to support. I also need a purpose outside of rugby, and that pushed me the past 5, 6 years to look into that and put things in place. I said to my wife that we get to the end of last season, whatever happened, and have a choice of me moving on from the sport or
Hmm.
carrying on playing. But at least having that choice, I would have definitely liked to carry on playing. There's no doubt in that. But at least give myself that choice that if a contract doesn't come, I'd have something else to fall back on. So I did put a lot of work in off the field in that sense, trying loads of different things to start with, and then focusing in on things I'm doing now.
So what? And that's it because it's all validation. I think is probably the
Mm.
right word, Tommy, of what we talk about with people all the time. So again, it's lovely to hear how our conversations just evolve. We never want to put words in your mouth, but just at that very point when you said tried a lot of different things, that's
Mm.
something that I just want you just to unpack a little bit with us because we have this expectation that we try and debunk with a lot of athletes that you're meant to just turn the key, put it in the lock, boom, you walk through the first door, everything's perfect and it fits. Very rarely does that happen. So it's
Yeah,
perfectly natural to explore, to experiment, to have conversations, to try things and to rule things out as much as you're ruling things in. So give
yeah,
us an insight into that when you said, I tried a couple of different things that perhaps didn't necessarily fit before you tell us about some of the things that you're
yeah.
doing now.
Yeah, so my dad's an accountant. He's got an accountancy business. So I did a couple of my ATTs in an off season.
Right.
Realized that is not for me.
Yeah.
So crossed that one off the list.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. Looked into loads. Looked into. Um, it's funny enough. I say this all the time. My mates take the mick out of me, but I got obsessed in dog training for a while, and
Right.
I looked into that as a how can you create a business around dog training.
Yeah.
Again, that lasted a year, 18 months, and then
Right.
realized that probably wasn't a viable income.
Harder than children as well. You can come and train my retriever. I've had no success.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then things like surveying, rural surveying, loads of things that my interest is outside a lot and in people. So it was all based around that. How I'd like to work with people, work outside if I can, things like that. So try things along those lines, and then kind of stumbled across a bit of a performance company, a leadership performance company,
Yep.
that use a lot of insights from high performance, a lot from sport. So that's how I kind of got involved in it. I met the MD Patrick Marr actually at a soup kitchen. We were both volunteering there in Leamington Spa, along
Right.
with Rob Miller, who used to play at Wasps as well. If you've never done that, it's one of the best experiences of my
Good for
life.
you.
Going
Yeah.
every
No, I've
week to a
not.
soup kitchen and meeting people that you'd never cross paths with, you'd never have a conversation. You might walk past them in the street maybe,
Of course.
but you'd never have a conversation and delve into what gets them there because everyone's the same, aren't they, when they're born, and some people take different
Absolutely.
paths. So it's really interesting. So
No, good for
I
you.
met Patrick. I met Patrick there. Sorry, I met Patrick there and got involved a little bit in leading edge performance, who I'm working for now, doing high performance insights while I was playing. So going into businesses or working with leadership teams and giving my perspective of high performance or experiences I've had and see if they can relate that to their current context.
Yes.
So
Like
that's how
it.
it started. And I thought I'd go down that route of almost coaching, the performance coaching side of things, which might
Yep.
still come about, but talking about trying different things, I thought that's what I'd do even probably at the start of this year that I was like, I'll go into this. And kind of got exposed to a little bit more of it and realized that my experience at Sale, Wasps in England only gets you so far in a conversation with a global leadership team or a B&Q team, something like that, for
Yes.
example. It's an insight, but it's not a maybe not something they can take into their day-to-day life. So that's probably a skill that I need to develop and a toolkit I need to develop at some point. But what fits me now and what I really enjoy is the business development side of it.
Right.
Because I'm
Right.
still talking about people, still talking about leadership and how to make teams work better, all that in different scenarios for different companies and sports teams. That's what I love doing. And I feel I've got the energy and I like meeting people and all that. So I think I've fallen into this role and it kind of fits me really well at the moment.
I like it. I like it. So now, just to expand that a little bit, looking at our research ahead of the episode, you're also still involved in the sort of pure side of the sport
Yeah.
in coaching. Is that right? You're still involved there as a forwards coach with Sedgley Park, is it?
Yes, yeah, forwards coach at Sedgley Park. So started this year. Absolutely love that working with Scott Barrow, who was Wasps Academy manager when I was at Wasps. Absolutely loving it. I've always wanted to stay in the game in that sense. And I feel like we're a lot to give in that coaching space, and I really take a lot from it as well. So I think it's a great role, and I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. I'm also at Sale Sharks once a week. So every Tuesday I'm in at Sale as a player development consultant. So bit of a wide span of helping boys settle at the club, new lads coming from abroad and
Yeah.
helping them off the pitch, players like we're talking about now in the transition, so older players or even players in the middle of their career who want to kind of find things outside of rugby, helping them do that, put them in contact with the right people or share my experience. And then also a big part of it is around the leadership and the culture of the lads. So I kind of lead up we call it a mental skills program. It needs a better name, but a more snappy name, I think. But where we've got myself, Tim Cox, who's a communication expert, James Bell, who is a psychologist, and Jacko is a breath coach.
Right.
So together we kind of come up with a lot of interventions on who lads that boys they need to focus on, what teams or because we have leadership teams in the club or emerging leaders like the young lads who we see as leaders coming through the next 3 4 years. What which resource do we put in that? Because these are experts. Tim's an expert in communication, Belly's an expert in psychology. You can bring them in and they could talk to everybody, but won't necessarily have the same impact of targeting different people at different times of the season. And the good thing is I've got the context of being in every single week.
Yeah.
I've also got context of playing with most of the squad before, so I've got that the understanding there and the trust levels, so I can kind of point them in the right direction, give the context of how they can be most effective, and that's a big part of my role. And again, I love it. It's talking about people and high performance and how you squeeze every kind of inch out of lads.
And it's a pleasure to listen to because I can see and feel the energy coming off you as you're talking about it. Because what's nice about this is you've got irons in different fires here, haven't you? You've gone outside
Yeah,
of the game, you've gone into that performance environment, and you've experimented. Do I want to do this? And you've tweaked and repositioned into that business development element. You've stayed in that pure sporting context of getting involved with the lads at Sedgley Park and being able to bring your knowledge to the fore. And you've also got that link back into Sale, where obviously you've had the better part of 10 years over a couple of stints. So you
yeah,
connect it, and you're doing something a little bit different. Because my ears, I've been in sport a long time. I've been on both sides of the fence, on the field, off the field, and what's been put together there in terms of breathwork specialist communication, all those different insights, I think is powerful. And again, showing my age, I played with Alex Hansen a long time ago, and he's a great guy. And I hear a lot of people talk about his desire to look after the human being and the person and that sort of culture's an easy thing to say, but
yeah.
it's no surprise to hear of innovative things happening because I think Alex probably sets the standard there, doesn't he, in terms of wanting that environment to be as good as it can be for the players.
Yeah, and I think it's also understanding that he can't do everything as well. I think that's just getting the right people around him.
Yes.
And I think the club's brilliant. And that's the owners of the club are the Oranges and Jed are brilliant at that as well. As in, we had four senior players. So I say senior players, old boys really, retired last year. So myself, Josh Beaumont, Ross Harrison, Will Addison. Will Addison's working with MMU, who've got a partnership with the club. Ross Harrison's working in the S&C department part time. Josh Beaumont's for the commercial department, and like I said, I'm in my spot as well. So I think it's an all-round club. I think direction that they're going in that they see the benefit of keeping players around who've obviously played for the club for years
Yes.
and using their expertise of helping those experts come in as well, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
I said, in my position, I can give context to an expert who only comes in every 6 weeks, say, I can give him a lot more information about one of the lads or the situation or the selection or the current problems going on with that player or the group. So I think that's really beneficial. And as you said, Alex drives that a lot. I think this all stemmed from my situation stemmed from a pretty honest conversation I had with Alex around me finishing my career and what I think could help at the club. And
Yes.
as you said, he's so open and forward thinking with that stuff that he helps put things in place and he puts the right people in place. And I think the coaching team now looks fantastic. I
Yeah.
think we're in a really good spot to hopefully catapult to take that next step to win the league. That'll be ideal.
That'd be fabulous. That'd be fabulous. So, how? I know it sounds a bit of a simplistic question to ask. How are you in this process now, then? Because it's easy for me on the outside listening to it. I'm like that. I sense the excitement in you. You've got multiple irons at different fires, which is exciting. Obviously, you're still trying to process the physical damage
Yes.
that you alluded to, which can never be trivialized. But how are you finding? If you had to sort of surmise how you're finding the transition process, bearing in mind you're probably the freshest individual, if
Yeah,
that
yeah,
makes
yeah, yeah.
sense. It's just a few months. So how would you surmise it so far? How do you say? Well, how do you think you're coping with it? Where are you on that sort of journey?
I'm busy, which I think helps. And I think you speak to anybody, you do have to take a certain amount of time off or be really intentional with processing finishing your career. I think that is very true. And I've been really busy since the day I finished at Sale. I got married actually. We had a 3-day honeymoon, which
Congratulations.
which was good. And more
Yeah,
at
well,
least
you're
to
going to
get rid of
start
the
getting your
hangover.
weekends back a little bit more, or maybe not with Sedgley Park. So your
No,
wife, your wife can't get the
yeah,
weekends
no.
back, unfortunately.
National One
Yeah,
travels
yeah, yeah,
takes over a fair bit. But yeah, it's a tough question to answer because as I said before, I had a long run up to this. It's not like this
yes.
happened straight away.
That
I
makes
think
sense. Yeah, you've had a year to prepare almost.
the process of me finishing my career was over probably a good 6 month period at the start of the
Yeah,
year where I knew I was finishing. This wasn't coming back to a level I needed it to. Um, and that allowed me to be in the environment, my career finish in that environment and if that makes sense. And I think that made
Yes.
it a bit easier. As you said, I'm still in the sport, which I think helps. If I'd gone straight into the business development and just had no connection with rugby, I don't think that would have been as easy.
Right.
I don't think it would have at all. So yeah, I think I think I'm doing well. This
Yeah,
is
I think.
I always worry when I'm because you don't know in 6 months' time things can quieten down and it can hit. But I think, as I said, that process of leading up to my retirement really helped.
Yes. Yeah, it's
And
nice to have that time to process things.
yeah, I think so. And I think at the same time, from a selfish point of view, I think I've spoken to the other boys about this as well. But having three of my closest friends in rugby finish at the same time also helps towards that. We're kind of in the same boat together,
Right. Yeah, that's
going through
interesting. A
the
bit of a
same thing.
support network almost.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, a bit
Yeah.
of support network. So I think that helps too.
Well, I think my perspective, listening to you, is it sounds like you're doing very well because obviously when we were researching, you come in and you're thinking, okay, this guy's retired, not really necessarily on his terms, got some physical consequences. So to hear you and to see what you're involved with, I think is to your credit. It's probably a good opportunity to ask another question that we ask every guest, Tommy, which is about the benefit of hindsight. Obviously, what
Mm,
we're doing with a lot of existing athletes is we get access to great guys like yourself. We get to tap into your wisdom. We get to listen to your journey and we share the benefit of hindsight because we've all heard that phrase. We're all a genius in hindsight, but when you're in
yeah.
the eye of the situations, you don't always make necessarily all the right decisions. So if you looked at your journey and you had to pull out one do and one don't for the benefit of people still walking that path, in terms of helping the transition. So if you were to say, perhaps to your younger self or to anybody
Mm,
that's coming along behind you, do this. It'll make transition easier. And equally, I would recommend you don't do this because it makes your
yeah.
transition more difficult. What comes to mind for you on that question?
So it's a very good question. I'd say do. So I think I said to the lads at Sale when I talked to them is don't leave it too late. It's a very generic thing, isn't it? Like the RPA talk to you when you're 18 years old about doing education and make sure
Mhm.
you do it because you can fall. I think it's really prominent in rugby now that it's everywhere that this could finish at some point. My kind of message would be when you are at the peak of your powers, if you're lucky enough to get there. So I look at boys who are playing for England now, your Bevan Rodds, your Tom Roebucks, Joe Carpenters. Um, when you're there, that is when you are hot property. That is when everybody wants to speak to you. Every business wants a piece of you.
Mhm.
Every CEO wants you in front of them. All that stuff. And I think it's really important that you don't just get on the ride of that international or even top four, the Prem, or how you're going if you're starting every week in the Premiership. It's exactly the same. I think it's really important to utilize your powers at that point because
Mhm.
it so quickly drops off, and not just you finish playing rugby, it so quickly drops off that you then your second choice or your third choice, and you're less in the limelight. You're not the one doing an interview in the program. All those little things. So I think
Mhm.
striking when the iron's hot, of opening those doors,
I like
keeping those
that.
relationships. Say again.
No, I like that. I like that phrase,
Yeah.
utilize your powers. I think that's a
Yeah.
great way
Utilize
of
your
framing
powers.
it because
Yeah.
and we hear this a lot, Tony. It's always just to jump in quickly, but there's a
Mm,
network, there's a network all around you and your corporate partners, sponsors at the
mm,
club, you name it. When you pick up the phone and you're the starting hooker for the club, even
mm.
bigger as you say, if you're playing internationally, you've got a currency, you've got a kudos. It will
Yeah.
get you through the doors. So
Yeah.
it's important just to really labor that point. And I love the way you friend it, utilize your powers because it does diminish. It's the reality of
Yes.
life. It does diminish. And
Yeah. Yeah.
when you retire, then the ex starting
Mm.
hooker. And it's just a little bit different, isn't it, to get through a door in that scenario?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
What about the don't
And
then? What comes to mind on the don't?
I'd say that though, I'd say it's something I've not done, so I think it's probably it. Give yourself a break after rugby. After, say, you finish your career on June the 6th, for example. I think that's maybe when we did it.
Yeah.
We got semi-final. Have a 4 week break of you don't have to go away, you don't have to spend loads of money going on holidays, but have a 4 week break of getting your head around finishing. As I said, I think I was lucky enough. I kind of had a 6 month break really to do that. But if you're finishing and retiring, give yourself a buffer between going into work. I think that I definitely had it. I was so eager to get into work because I wanted to earn money. I wanted to get better at what my new job is. I want to start
Yes.
straight away and keep improving and immerse myself in it. But I think there is a massive benefit of giving yourself a break. A couple of my friends have done that, and I think it's definitely the right thing to do.
Yeah. I like that.
Especially if you've
That's an
got,
interesting perspective because a lot
mm,
of people talk about the unrelenting work ethic that most athletes have got. We had Mike Brown on the last episode, and
yeah,
he was talking about that has been one of the transferable skills. And I think it's right. So many athletes have just built the whole career around work ethic, getting things
yeah,
done. So it feels logical to get straight into the next chapter as you did. But I think
yeah,
that's a nice perspective. We've not had anyone say that before, and it makes
mm,
perfect sense. Just almost like a period to decompress, to adjust, so
yeah.
that you make the best possible impression when you do step into work. You're not still sort of half in, half out of your last chapter.
Yeah, and I think if you kind of step back a bit, that's the hardest thing to do when you're in it and you're living that retirement or
Yes.
that the transition. Like you want to get the next thing done. I did that exactly what I did. But I think if you can step back and say, right, well, I'm going to go into a job that hopefully I'll be working for the next 30, 40 years. The likelihood of that,
Yes.
you'll change jobs, but hopefully I do. This is a period where I can go, right, I'm giving myself a month, step back, decompress,
Yes.
spend time with my family, talk everything through, and then start the next chapter. I think, um, yeah, I think that's something I didn't do.
Yeah, no, no,
I'd
and this is
recommend.
exactly why we asked
Yeah,
the question because something you didn't do. This is the classic
yeah,
articulation of the benefit of hindsight, and I
mm,
think you've alluded to something else as well, which isn't always the norm. That little bit of a support network, senior
mm,
players all retiring at the same time. So
yeah, yeah,
just to reference that, Tommy, I think it's important for anybody listening that you need somebody to talk to. So it might be your partner, it might be your wife, it could be somebody at the club that you're leaving or the organisation you're leaving. It might be
mm,
a good friend. It could be an organisation like ours talking to a coach or a mentor. It doesn't really
yeah,
matter, but talking things through, I think, is pretty non-negotiable for me because we all have demons and
yeah,
regrets and things in our head, coulda, woulda, shouldas, and you've got to talk them through to sort of put things to bed. And you've mentioned that support network with the players. You're now offering majestically that sort of squares of the circle because you're
mm,
now in a role, no doubt, where you're having some of these conversations with people as they approach that
yeah.
end of the sporting journey. So I know you would agree with that, Tommy, but does that resonate with you? Just that it's a window of compression, as you said, but it's also
Yeah.
what you do with that window, isn't it? And I think talking's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And like, lucky enough that I've had that network of lads in the same situation as me. My family are really supportive. So I think I'm lucky in that sense that everyone has that, obviously. So
Yes.
um, I think it's human nature, isn't it, to want to fit in. So when you're injured and you're retiring, you don't fit into your environment where you've been.
Yeah.
You kind of a bit of an outlier in your own head. So I think I've always found it easy, if I look back at my injuries, finding somebody who's going through the same thing or has gone through the same thing that I can just pepper with questions. So
Yeah.
I did this when I retired. I've some guys might be listening to this, but messaged some ex-players that I've played with or played against saying,
Yes.
have you got half an hour for a team's call? Just pick your brains on what you did, what helped you,
Perfect.
all those things that made me feel probably I'm not on my own, which I think is massively important. I'd say the same thing with my back. It's quite a unique injury, and not many people I know have had it to this severity. So constantly trying to find people that have gone through it, what they've tried, is there a little bit of hope somewhere, or that. And I think that made me feel a lot easier about it.
Yeah.
The same
Yeah.
with the transition, yeah.
I love it. No, and it takes me into sort of our sort of quick fire, and
Mm.
it might be from one of those conversations, but we like to ask everyone, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? So I'm going to put a part two to that. I'm interested. What was the best bit of advice you got from all the players that had recently retired? Because I think that's a really proactive step you've taken. But going bigger picture than that, it doesn't matter whether it's when you were 18, whether it was 5 minutes ago. If there's one piece of advice that you like, best piece, sport in life, doesn't matter. We'd just love to hear what comes back in terms of sharing with the listeners. Best piece of advice you were ever given.
Um, it's difficult that. I've read loads.
Yeah.
I've read loads of Stoicism, and there's plenty of
And
good
I'll just
nuggets in
we'll
there.
go in with the players that you spoke. Go to the second part of the question first. All those sort
Okay.
of proactive conversations. Was there anything in particular that stood out? You don't have to name names if it was in confidence,
No,
but anything of
I
those
think
conversations.
a lot of it was kind of things you'd expect. Is nothing kind of that like bright lights or anything. It was more around ideas of what networks to go into. So like
Yeah.
being in touch with, I spoke to Andy Saul the other day, and he's added me to three WhatsApp groups of ex-players, um, where you can have routes into jobs or routes into contacts or just support, and they meet up every now and again. So I think that was a big thing for me. I think things that I didn't know about existed, which
Yeah.
I would probably have never known. So I think that was a real benefit of it, I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
And then the best piece of advice, ooh, I've had a lot of advice over the years.
Some of it might not be valid. Some of it you're like, no, that
Yeah,
wasn't good
I
advice. But
I think from one of my really close friends who was in whose one of their parents had passed away recently, they said don't wait. I think we were talking about a bottle of wine to open. We had a bottle of wine. Me and my wife bought a bottle of wine 10 years ago in South Africa on that tour
right.
that we kept. And we were like, what are you waiting for? We've had kids, we got married in the time.
Yeah.
And just obviously not talking about the bottle of wine, talking about life. Like, what are you waiting for? Like,
Yeah.
things aren't just going to happen for you. I think that is also in kind of relates to what we're talking about as well
Absolutely.
of things aren't just going to happen. And if you want to do something, you have to just go and do it. And I
Yeah.
think that is a mindset of that probably what Mike Brown was talking about as well, about that work ethic. I think one thing I've noticed coming out of rugby is the mindset of professional sport or high performance sport or whoever it is. I think the transferable thing is being able to make a decision and do it straight
Hmm.
away and not have to not take too much time over it. That gets you in trouble, well, not trouble, but it gets you unstuck a little bit because you
Yeah.
probably throw my face into something or head first into something and it might be the wrong thing. But a lot of the time, that mindset of right, let's just do it then. What we're waiting for, I
Yeah.
think is really beneficial. So yeah,
100%.
yeah,
No, it's a good one. You
great
see,
advice.
it came to the fore, you reflected, and then that came out. No, and I
Yeah,
love
that
that
came
one.
out, didn't it?
I've had a fridge magnet stripped away. I think my wife or my daughter's got rid of it, but I had it for years. Life's not a dress rehearsal. They found it
Yeah,
too cheesy, but I used to like to see that every day when I open the fridge because it's true. It's going back to what you're saying. Why are we waiting? We get one crack at it, and
yeah,
we have so much internal narratives, and we see this a lot in the transition process. Tom, well, I can't
mm,
do this and I can't do that. Well, why can't you? You know, look at what you've
mm.
achieved in your professional career. Did you ever think you would do that? It's the same principles. You just got to get in the right networks, as you said, ask questions, close off those skills gaps and knowledge gaps, apply your work ethic that you've already got, and see what you can achieve. So, no, I
And
think that's good advice. Go on.
sorry, yeah, I don't like in when we talk about networks. I think even when I was a player, when people talk about go out and network, go to an event and network, and for a lot of lads, that's a really uncomfortable thing to do and a complete waste of their time because they won't want to talk to people that are much interested in it. Like I see it as more getting out of your bubble. So professional sport rugby is a bubble. You're with similar-minded people
Hmm.
every single day. A lot of you went to similar schools, similar backgrounds. Obviously, there's some differences. Of
Yes.
course there is, but you're all going to try and go to work, trying to get better, to reach one goal. You want to play, you want to win the cup, all that stuff. You don't ever really get out of that bubble. And I think it's important, even if it's just going back to your local rugby club or like going to a soup kitchen, like I said before, or something that is just so not going to get you a job. It's not going to, all that stuff. It's just giving you exposure to something that's not your day-to-day norm. And I think that's probably true for everybody in the world, but I think it's really true for professional sport.
Very healthy, gives you a different perspective. And
Yeah,
people who have listened to every
yeah,
episode in our back catalogue, Tommy, are probably tired of Carl and I saying it, but there is so much science now that reinforces the notion if you can actively and proactively step away from your discipline occasionally, it's good for your performance. It clears some of that mental stress and pressure away. It re-energizes you. Doing things like going to that soup kitchen, fabulous. And it's great for the soul. But actually, it's the
yeah,
ultimate win-win because you go back refreshed. You go back with a new perspective. You go back with
yeah,
perhaps a greater, in your experience, there a greater sense of gratitude. Even though
yeah,
you're stuck in the gym, you're rehabbing from an injury. You've seen what some people are going through, and the rehab journey doesn't seem quite as
no,
stressful as perhaps it was. So I think, yeah,
yeah.
great life advice. So I'll keep peppering the questions at you. You mentioned you've read plenty in the past. Best book that you would recommend? Is there a book that sticks in your mind that you're like, that had a really good impact on me? I'd share that one.
Yeah, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday.
Like
It's
it. Yeah.
um I read it I did my knee when I was at Wasps. I did my ACL at Wasps, my second end of my first year at Wasps, did my ACL end of the season. before flying to Argentina with England. Not the best time mentally, but you have to get on, don't you?
Yeah,
And I think I read that book, listened to it about 1,000 times audio, and just something resonated with me. I think inside around what can you control?
yeah,
Like there's so many things in this world, so many stimulus that creates anxiety that is almost put there to create anxiety in people. I think having a real simplistic mindset of is that in my control? Is that out of my control? Well, that's all that matters then. So I
yeah.
think that honestly, like I've given it to loads of lads before, and I think recommended it. It sounds daft, doesn't it? But I think genuinely it was a point in my life where something clicked in my head.
Yeah, no,
And I don't live
absolutely.
it. I don't live it every day. Like I try to, but it's difficult, isn't it? But I do think it's something that I can fall back on every now and again that grounds me, which
Yeah,
helps.
none of us are robots, Tommy. I think that's the
Mm.
benefit of growth and development never stops. So that's why we ask about the books because it'll encourage people to look that up. And I've read
Yeah,
it. I've
yeah,
got it behind me here. I first heard it was actually Rory McIlroy, I think, talking about that. He's going
yeah.
through
Okay.
this constant pressure of everyone asking when you're going to win the next major, and he recommended that book. So that's the benefit of asking this question. So yeah, I think things do come to us at the right time.
Yeah.
So, couple of might seem a bit more random here, but these are questions that have come in from within. We get a lot of people who ping questions in. They're in the sort of ATA community, and a couple of people reference questions that Tim Ferriss has utilized on probably one of the biggest podcasts in the world. So I was like, okay, we'll throw some of them out there. So we're debuting a couple of these with you. But
Great.
what is your outside of family, obviously? Most cherished possession. If the house was burning down, you had to grab one thing. What are you grabbing?
Goodness. It's probably around me because I'm in
Yeah.
I'm in the room in the loft, so that's where everything gets stored. I've got loads of memento things, obviously from rugby. Uh, One thing that is kind of it's not a memento at all, but it's kind of a sign like a sign of a period that we had. It was around COVID, so my son was born really premature, and
Right.
we've got. It was March 2020, and I was at Wasps. Obviously, the league shut down. And we were in hospital for a month with him. My wife was in hospital with him at the time. He was fine. He's just absolutely tiny, and we've got a little dummy of his that he had. I think it's day 2 or 3, and it is the smallest thing that you could ever imagine. And I think that time was just such a blur. I think with COVID, but obviously with him arriving so early and being in hospital, it was just a strange time of our lives, me and my wife. And that is just a reminder of it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I see it every now and again, and he finds it and he laughs at how small it was. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think just a symbol of what we went through as a family, but
Yeah.
the time of the world as well, I guess.
I love it. What a lovely answer. And this is and the actual what the persons 2 or 3 people had suggested this, and they said you always get such profound and lovely answers. And I
Mm.
think there you go. That's a lovely illustration of that. The next one might be a little bit easier, but I don't think you're going to top that in terms of the emotional power of what you just shared there. But best purchase you've ever made under £100.
Ooh,
Could be a gadget, could be anything, but just could be
yeah,
obstacle is the way. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but just when you look back and go, okay, because this is another. I take shameless plagiarism. It's another Tim Ferriss
yeah,
one,
no, I like
apparently.
it. Um, yeah, I'm going through my house, think what I've got. Not really got much. I think I love my cooking. Like I love cooking, cook every night. And maybe my knives.
There
They
you
are
go.
individually. Are they under £100? Maybe not. That might be a cop out. One of them's definitely under £100, so
Yeah,
I'll have
yeah,
that.
yeah. Go with
Yeah.
that. One of your cooking knives. No, I like it. I like it. Well, listen, Tommy, I know it's a little bit of fun to finish it, but for going back to the serious challenges that you've gone through with your back and the nerve damage and everything else, I think it's an absolute pleasure to hear how proactive you've been and the energy that you've got. I think that will inspire a lot of people to say, right, well, here's a guy who's just a few months into the transition. He's buoyant, he's upbeat, he's busy, he's got lots going on, and yet you could have easily taken a different path. You could have been frustrated, down, despondent, full of resentment that you've got this injury and just sort of labouring in that. But you're not. You're doing what athletes do best, I think, being proactive and jumping into it and
Yeah.
attacking it. And I wish you the very best of luck for the future. I sound like Columbo now. Just one final question. If you had to recommend a friend, somebody from your network to be a guest on this show to talk about their journey of transition, who comes to mind? Who would be a good guest, do you think, to invite on the show?
Um, oh, there's plenty because I'm old enough now to have loads of lads who are finished. So any of those three, Will Addison, Josh Beaumont, Ross Harrison, who've just retired, all going into different realms that I've gone into. So that's quite interesting. Rob Miller, he's one of my
Yep.
closest friends. He's come out of the game. He's working with Nike. Lots of experience. I think he finished about 4 or 5 years ago. Joe Simpson again.
Right.
Um, we probably have to have a podcast about 3 hours long for him, but
Right.
he'd be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, plenty
Great
of lads
names.
there.
Yeah. No, it's
I don't
because
want to.
it's the power of the community that we're building. There's nothing
Yes,
better, as we know in life, than a referral. You know, you think that immediately think of interesting guys, good stories to tell, and that's what
yeah,
this is all about. And you've certainly lived up to the billing today. I think it's been a pleasure, a fascinating conversation. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. If people want to reach out to you, Tommy, connect with you, and you know, and follow up on today, where's the best place to find you? Is it LinkedIn? Is that somewhere that people can find you?
yeah. It's LinkedIn these days. That is
You're
my
a LinkedIn
world.
animal. I can see in your face now. Yeah, the business development side of you's coming to the fore there.
Yeah, handle Tommy Two Taylor. Yeah, I actually don't know what it is on LinkedIn, but yeah, LinkedIn.
We'll find you. We'll put you in the show notes.
Brilliant. All
Good
right, really
man. Well,
appreciate it.
Tommy, been a great chat. You can go back, look after your son now. Thanks very much for spending the time with us today. Wish you the very best luck in the future.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us this week on our ATA podcast. If you found this conversation insightful and it resonates with your journey, please subscribe, follow the show, and stay connected with us for more insight, resources, and information on how we at ATA are supporting your preparation for life beyond the game.